right now, the coaching market is stacked with big names looking for their next destination. As once the Islanders let go of Barry Trotz, other teams began letting go of and replacing their coaches as well. Vegas now has Bruce Cassidy from Boston, and recently, the Flyers have signed John Tortorella. But the pool of names are still piling up, and plenty of teams are still looking for their next bench boss. And with all the buzz surrounding the coaching carousel, I wanted to make a video dedicated to coaches. Really bad coaches. Some NHL stars have become great coaches once hanging up the skates, with Rod Brind'Amour being the first to come to mind. But for every good coach, there's a bad one. And there have been plenty of NHL greats who are anything but once being behind the bench. So today, we're going to look back on NHL stars who failed as coaches. One of the NHL's early stars was Red Wings forward slash defenseman Ebby Goodfellow. Goodfellow was often praised for his versatility, and he was able to play wherever, whenever, in order to fit the team's needs. He was a 3-time All-Star and won League MVP as a defenseman with 28 points in 48 games during the 39-40 season. Ebby was a well-respected player, and his impact on the team helped the Wings take home 3 Stanley Cups throughout his 14-year career. Ebby's third cup, however, was won under some unique circumstances. Throughout the majority of the 42-43 season, Goodfellow was sidelined with an injury, but when Wings head coach Jack Adams would get suspended during that year's playoffs, Goodfellow agreed to take over as the coach for the remainder of the postseason, and he was able to do the unthinkable, managing to coach his team to a Stanley Cup victory, getting his name placed on the cup both as a player and a head coach. This moment is what most likely encouraged Goodfellow to want to coach once he hung up the skates, as he would get hired to become the Blackhawks head coach in the 50-51 season. Unfortunately for Ebby, he couldn't recreate the magic that was the 42-43 run. In fact, he wouldn't even come close to doing so, finishing his 2-year tenure in Chicago with a 30-91-19 record, never making it past 6th in the standings. To this day, his coaching record is considered to be amongst the worst in NHL history, but despite the poor performance, he did at least manage to coach a team to a Stanley Cup. And speaking of cups, Wayne Gretzky had a lot of them. Gretzky is the greatest player of all time. He's won 4 Stanley Cups, 9 MVPs, holds 61 NHL records, and dominated his opponents on a nightly basis. Gretzky's hockey IQ was off the charts, which also played a big role in his on-ice success. But almost immediately after deciding to retire, a handful of teams were willing to offer Wayne a position behind the bench. Ideally, Gretzky would make the perfect coach, as why pass up on the opportunity to let the greatest of all time turn your team into the greatest of all time? Well, back in 2000, Gretzky invested in the Phoenix Coyotes, and by 2005, rumors began to surface that Wayne would name himself the head coach of the team. Both sides agreed to make it happen, and the Yotes would send shockwaves around the NHL when they announced they were naming Wayne Gretzky their next head coach for the upcoming season. At the time, the Coyotes were in desperate need of success, and they decided to give Gretzky a chance, as not only does hiring him potentially help the team, it also draws attention, because not only was the team losing games, they were also losing interest. The hope was for Gretzky to turn the team around, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. What many seem to forget was that Wayne had zero experience as a coach. In fact, he hosted more late-night talk shows than he coached actual NHL games, and his inexperience showed very early on. Defenseman Derek Morris would state that the team, quote, changed systems every single day, and during his time in the desert, the young guns would either burn out or never reach their full potential. In his first season, the Yotes would be barely below 500, and 2 years later, with a record of 38, 37, and 7, Gretzky's Coyotes would finally post a somewhat winnable record. Throughout his entire 4-year tenure, Wayne would never make the postseason, and never finished higher than 4th in the Pacific Division, and after another 4th place finish in the 08-09 season, Gretzky announced that he was quitting as head coach via his website. The whole situation was wonky, as first, he and Rick Tocchet were under fire for a gambling scandal, and then there were problems with ownership that made it very clear Gretzky wasn't in their future plans. In 2007, he famously stated that he was going to make himself a good head coach, and Shane Doan showed immense class once Wayne left the team, stating, quote, he was on his way to becoming a great coach. Dallas's Dave Tippett would be his replacement, and he would go on to get the same Coyotes team to 3 straight postseason appearances, also taking home the Jack Adams in 2010.
The winner is Dave Tippett.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Flyers' Paul Holmgren was an underrated contributor during the 1970s and the 1980s, because when he wasn't in the box, he was occasionally producing 65 and 59 point seasons. Holmgren would retire after the 84-85 season, finishing his career with a total of 323 points in 527 games, and almost immediately after leaving the league, he pursued a role in coaching. He would become the Flyers' assistant coach, and when Mike Keenan was fired following the 87-88 season, the organization turned to Holmgren to take over the role of head coach. And by doing so, they made Paul the first former Flyer to ever coach the franchise. Holmgren surprised everyone in his first year, taking the Flyers on a shocking run to the Wales Conference Finals in the 88-89 season. However, the team barely made it in, getting into the playoffs with an exact 500 record of 36, 36, and 8. Little did anyone know, however, that this would be as good as the team would get during the Holmgren era, as after the magical run, the Flyers failed to make the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. Because of the lack of success after the 88-89 season, Paul would get the boot midway through his 4th season. This wasn't the end of Holmgren in Philly, however. Years later, during the 06-07 season, Holmgren would, yet again, get a position in the organization, this time as a general manager. His tenure as GM would start out strong, but after signing some questionable contracts and making some head-scratching moves, he would get replaced and given another promotion elsewhere in the organization. Sound familiar? Yeah, this pattern unfortunately followed Holmgren throughout his entirety of retirement, but he is still a very impactful member of the Flyers organization regardless of the past, and his coaching record of 161, 219, and 45 will also never be forgotten. Some head coaches are known for being a bit of a hothead, while others are known for their outspokenness and their personality. And with Patrick Roy, you got both. Prior to him getting hired in 2013, Roy spent the previous 8 seasons in the QMJHL with the Quebec Ramparts, serving as both a head coach and the general manager. And in Colorado, they were in need of a new voice to guide the team in a new direction. Roy's old pal and teammate Joe Sakic had just been given a bit more power over the decision making, and decided to bring in his buddy to not only coach the team, but to also give him the title of Vice President of Hockey Operations.
Today, the Colorado Avalanche named Patrick Roy their new head coach, 6 in the Avalanche history.
When in the NHL, Patrick Roy was always known as an interesting character. He was a fierce competitor and strived to bring that same energy in his return to Denver. He wanted his team to play with passion and wasted no time setting a standard that immediately won him over with the fans. As in just his first game behind the bench, he would exchange words with Ducks coach Bruce Boudreau, which caused things to escalate very quickly. Roy would slam the glass separating the benches and almost caused it to completely collapse. But despite this incident, his first year in Colorado actually went well. He would help the team win the Central Division and the President's Trophy, winning 52 games and guiding the team into the postseason. Because of his success, he would also take home the Jack Adams Award, being named Coach of the Year. So, why is he even in this video? Well, things seem to go downhill rather fast after Roy's early success. Just 1 year after the Avs' miraculous season, the team would fall to 39, 31, and 12, finishing 7th in the division. And then a year after, the team would again finish with 39 wins, but lost even more games in regulation. Most credit this downfall due to Roy's sometimes crazy coaching tactics that saw him pull the net with as much as 10 minutes left in a game.
So he has 5 skaters out to 4 for Ottawa.
But Wa's beef with some of his own players may have also caused a rift in the organization, specifically with Avs forward Matt Duchene. Wa wasn't afraid to call out his players, and he infamously ridiculed Duchene after he celebrated a goal being down 4-1 with minutes left in the game.
The thing I have a bit of a hard time is the reaction of Dutchie after he scores. It's a 4-0 goal. Big cheer. Are you kidding me?
Regardless, most actually don't consider Wa's tenure to be that much of a failure, and apparently, most teams didn't think so either, as it's been rumored that Wa wants to make a return either behind the bench or as a general manager in the near future, so perhaps we'll get to see Wa get a second chance to prove the haters wrong, as his 130, 92, and 24 record is actually the best in today's video, and is a record that is above 500. I wanted to end today's video talking about a particular coach who wasn't even really a star in the NHL. Rick Bowness was one of the hottest stories of the crazy 2020 season, as seemingly out of nowhere, he would make a return to the head coaching position 15 years after quietly bouncing around the league as an assistant and an associate. Bowness would be named interim head coach during the middle of the 2019-2020 season after Jim Montgomery stepped down due to unprofessional conduct.
It's a huge shock for you and for all of us to come in here this morning and find this news.
And boy was it ever, because Bowness was actually one of the worst head coaches in NHL history. After coaching his childhood team, the Boston Bruins, to the conference finals, he would be named the first ever head coach in Ottawa Senators history. Obviously, since they were an expansion team, things didn't go well, and after going 39, 178, and 18 with the Senators, he would have short stints both on Long Island and in Phoenix, finishing his coaching career with a record of 123, 289, and 48. That is, until 2020, as in the middle of the season, having to immediately step in and get right back into the swing of things, what Bowness did was absolutely incredible. He took the Dallas Stars to the Stanley Cup final, and although losing to Tampa Bay, he would get signed to a 2-year extension and help Dallas become a dark horse in the Western Conference to make some noise come playoff time. After losing to the Flames in the playoffs this season, however, Bowness would step away due to his contract expiring, and no one knows if he'll ever want to coach again. But I wanted to include Bowness because his story shows that sometimes getting just one more chance to prove your worth could work wonders on not just one's confidence, but on one's overall career. Because after his success in Dallas, he made his coaching record look a little less ugly, finishing this season with a career record of 212, 351, and 48. Just because you're a star on the ice doesn't mean your success will translate once being behind the bench. But for those who have been successful, they'll tell you it's no easy task, because one bad season can have you going from a Jack Adams candidate to being known as one of the worst head coaches of all time.